So we're on Halacha Yomi, we're on page 228. So we're talking about a type of Muktzeh that's a kli shachto leheter, which means a permitted use item. Items they use to do permitted things on Shabbat. 33, food that is meant for human consumption may be moved even for no purpose at all. What about if you have food that's for sale? You sell food, but you happen to have that merchandise at home. Food that's for sale for customers, even if it's stored in a warehouse, is not Muktzeh. Even if it's very expensive, like fine wine. Food that's only fit for animals is not considered Muktzeh, provided that the animal is in the house or it's commonly found in one city. So like, let's say we have an area, our friend, he has chickens. So let's say we have animal feed, chicken feed, that is movable on Shabbat, it's not Muktzeh.
Is it domestic animals or?
Any animal, if you long as you have it in the city or have it in your house. Foods that are partially edible, such as dates that have been picked where they're not fully ripe, are not considered Muktzeh. Or let's say you have a banana that's not fully ripe, avocado that's not fully ripe, all those things are not considered Muktzeh. All cooked and baked foods that are frozen, they're not Muktzeh. On Shabbat, like a challah, you take it out of the freezer, it's not considered Muktzeh, since it's possible for the food to defrost on Shabbat. Similarly, stale bread is not considered Muktzeh, because you could go and on Sunday from the Pishka, right, you can make a nice dish with eggs and tomato and this and that. You can figure out what to do with it. Okay. In the times of Talmud, 38, it was not uncommon for individuals to eat raw meat. I think they still sell it in carpaccio today, right? You could get raw meat nicely. Yeah. So what happens? So therefore, raw meat was considered an edible item. Today, however, normally it is unusual to do so. Mahloket, better not to handle raw meat on Shabbat. Some say it's Muktzeh, Muhammad Gufo, because it has no use. Nobody will use it like that, and since it has to be cooked, so you can't even use it on Shabbat, so therefore, better not to move it. What happens if you need something from the freezer and there's a bunch of meat in the way, frozen meat? Maybe if you're going to be strict and say it's Muktzeh, how am I going to get stuff out of the freezer? Let's say when you want to eat Shabbat afternoon is nice out, we want to eat popsicles. So we take out the popsicle from the freezer, but there's a bunch of raw meat over there. However, in cases of need, such as the meat needs to be moved in the freezer or to a freezer in order to prevent spoiling, then it'll be permitted to move. But or another halacha, one may move raw meat that's in the freezer in order to reach a permitted item. So there you go. That's the halacha. That you're allowed to move it out of the way. What about raw fish? Raw fish that's been salted or smoked is not considered Muktzeh. However, raw fish that's not even salted, is that considered Muktzeh? Do people eat raw fish today?
Yes.
No, but they eat it, but with the spice.
Oh.
Sushi. Yeah. We do every Shabbat.
If they would eat raw fish, just as raw fish, not in the sushi, just raw fish, a slice. Let's say they sell the sashimi, yeah.
Yeah, sashimi, yeah.
People eat it like that. Everybody eats it like that. I don't know if you would.
It has to be sushi grade. It has a lot of flavor.
Okay, fine. So maybe there's different levels of fish. But the point is that raw fish has not been salted is considered Muktzeh. Halachically, it's considered Muktzeh. They asked Rav Ovadia about sushi, and he's like, "What is this?" He's like, "Yeah." Rav David was telling him, "Yeah. People eat raw fish today." He was looking at him like, "Where did you fall from? Like, what are you talking about? Who eats raw fish?" But even though raw fish could technically be fed to an animal, since it's not generally fed to an animal, so therefore it remains Muktzeh. For these purposes, raw egg is not considered Muktzeh, since people might swallow it raw. Let's say you wake up in the morning, you want to be Rocky, you're going to go for a jog, you swallow 5 eggs. So since you could swallow it raw, it's not considered Muktzeh. When Pesach falls out, Motzei Shabbat. Oh, this halacha applies to us this year. The matzah, the one set aside to eat for the seder, is considered Muktzeh on Shabbat, since it's forbidden to be eaten at that time. Right? You're not allowed to eat matzah Erev Shabbat. The Erev Pesach falls on Shabbat. So you can't eat matzah Erev Pesach, which is Shabbat day, Saturday. So you can't move the matzah because you're not allowed to eat it. So it's Muktzeh. So therefore, you gotta be careful. Other matzah that will not be used for the seder is not considered Muktzeh because they can be fed to a child. So what do? The people keep their soft matzah frozen, and they gotta take it out to the frost Shabbat afternoon. So it's Muktzeh. So then how can I move it? How am I gonna take it out? So we learned before that if you need to move something that's Muktzeh, you could move it if it's on top of something else. You could move the thing under it. You could put something on top of it and carry it together. You should try to still use some other loophole and move in Muktzeh. Directly moving it, let's say, to Tulman Atzah, right? This is done by carrying the item that the Muktzeh is resting on, but moving it straight by itself is not mutar. So you gotta plan in advance. You gotta think about these things and know this halacha. It applies very much so this year. Okay, medicines that are generally used for a person who's considered sick as not Muktzeh. This is true even if no one in the home is currently ill. Vitamins are also not considered Muktzeh. A healthy person is allowed to take vitamins on Shabbat, no problem whatsoever. But Tylenol and Advil and all the things they have a headache, those are not allowed to be taken on Shabbat. Only if you're bedridden, you're allowed to take medicine on Shabbat. Okay, plants, flowers, or besamim that are in a vase are not considered Muktzeh and they're allowed to be moved. 50, plants that are in a flower pot may be moved as long as you don't do melacha of zorea or koser. Right? We said that if a flower pot is on the ground and then you take it off the ground, it's take away the ability to nourish from the ground. So that's all considered a koser. You have to be careful with that. But let's say it's already on your house floor and you're just moving it over. Mutar on Shabbat to move over a plant on a flower pot. Okay, 51. Are you allowed to wear an electric watch on Shabbat? Yes, you're allowed to wear it as long as you're careful not to press buttons. However, if it's blank and the only way to see the time is to press something, that's asur. You can't use that. You're for sure going to come to press the button. They ask about Apple watches. Apple watches, they're taking their sensors are constantly taking your vitals. And a lot of them now, you glance at them and they turn on. So it's almost impossible to wear those things on Shabbat. Some people have hearing aids. One is allowed to wear a hearing aid on Shabbat, provided that he turns it on from before Shabbat. Some people like to have a electric-powered heating blanket. And they turn it on from before Shabbat. You're allowed to use that if it was plugged in, turn on before Shabbat. With the weather these days, so hot and so cold, right? You gotta get a blanket, a nice blanket sometimes. 54. Even though a table, chair, or ständer are permitted to be moved without a purpose, with a purpose, they may not be moved for no purpose at all. This is also a case for a carpet. If it covers the entire floor, it has to be for a purpose, not for no purpose. Okay. Bless you. 60. Even though according to Shulchan Aruch, in Seif 45, it is prohibited to play with a ball on Shabbat. It's possible that nowadays Shulchan Aruch would agree it's permitted. Because back in the day, they used to take it from the leftover rags and leftover stuff in the house. They used to make a bowl out of it and play with it. But today, they make professional bowls. They make basketballs, footballs, soccer balls, ping pong balls, right? So maybe Shulchan Aruch would agree that they're not considered Muktzeh. While it's possible to be lenient for children, it's proper that an adult should be stringent not to play with a ball on Shabbat. However, it's permitted for an adult to pick up a ball and hand it to a child.
Inflating the ball?
Inflated balls are asur. If it's the first time it's inflated, it's a metaken mana. It's the makeba patish. It's asur. Okay, Bet Yosef brings Shibule Eleke to bring Rabbeinu Yonah that one may not play with a ball on Shabbat since it's not able to be used for other uses and it's considered not utensils. Muktzeh Machmad Kufo. It also gets very dirty. The Midrash Echa brings, and also the Talmud Yerushalmi says the Tur Shimon was destroyed because the adults used to play ball on Shabbat. There's a very big Yitzhara, Guy Chozer B'Tshuvah, he keeps Shabbat now, and then he passes by Yellowstone Park, and he sees all the ballers over there, and he says, the long Shabbat afternoon, what I'm going to do from 1 till 6, I could play like 40 games of basketball. I could just go be there. And the kaif is you beat everybody, you stay on the court, you tell them, yes, you're going to show off your skills. So it's a very big yesara. You have to know that that's not what Shabbat is meant for. Shabbat is not supposed to be Sunday on Saturday. That's not what Shabbat is meant for. There's a lot of other things to be busy with, and a person has to know if Hashem gave you 6 days, you could give 1 day to Hashem. Why not give 1 day to Hashem? Okay, so the Shevet Levi writes that even though Shulchan Aruch might agree that nowadays bowls are considered specifically for playing with and different than the bowls that were used in the time of Shulchan Aruch, But the sports balls that in the time of the Shulchan Aruch, they were made from stone or rags, all those things. But Chazon Ovadia is stringent, and he says in volume 3, page 99, not to play with a ball on Shabbat, even those produced nowadays. Again, also has to do with the spirit of Shabbat. It's not proper to play with play basketball and play ball games. Ping pong. I remember when I was little, a lot of people used to play ping pong all afternoon. There was like a tournament, one after the other. It could take up your whole Shabbat. You forget the people. People at one point started looking forward to Shabbat because they know they're going to play basketball. They know they're going to play ping pong. There's big disrespect to Shabbat. That can't come to that point. 61. Even an adult should not play with children's toys. It's permitted to give a toy to a child to play with. Likewise, since a child is permitted to use his tricycle on Shabbat, it is permitted to be moved as well. It's not considered Muktzeh. At 62, one should not allow his child to play with toys that are battery operated. So too, musical instruments. So let's say a kid has a little toy xylophone, a kid has a little toy guitar, a kid has a car that makes lights and is battery operated, and it goes wee wee wee, all these things. Do not let your kids play with them. No, don't do that. It's gonna be harder to teach them later. Baruch Amen, man.